Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
This is episode 35 of the FAB Podcast on Wisp Sports Radio.
Excuse me.
The FAB Podcast is the weekly show brought to you by Females in Athletic Business for women in the sports business, where we believe that women in sport deserve equal coverage. Welcome to this week's episode. My name is Kristin Ray, and I'm the founder of Females in Athletic Business and one of your hosts of the FAB Podcast. Today we are talking with Lauren Clayborne, formerly of the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Pistons. She has worked in corporate partnerships and community relations and is now currently in transition. She's spending some time helping other young people enter the industry now. And she was honored by Michigan Chronicle's Women of Excellence program in 2017 and was Detroit Young Professionals Vanguard Award recipient in 2018. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Kristin. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're so excited. We're so excited to have you here. So we know that you've spent some time working in both the community relations part of our industry and the corporate sponsorships part of the industry, in both in pro sports. So start off maybe by talking a little bit about the personality traits that you think seem to work best in each of those fields, because I know both of those fields are ones that a lot of young people are interested in getting into. So maybe they need to know kind of how they might differ and which ones they might be good at.
Yeah. So I will say, there's definitely a lot of differences with the two departments, but I will also say that, they're very similar. And so obviously in corporate partnerships, you're working with all of those sponsors that support, whether it be the team or the organization. In community relations, you're supporting, those entities that are external, right? And so whether that be nonprofits, whether that be players, whether that be the Women's Association. And so those are kind of the two differences, but in both instances, you're there to serve, right? And so if you don't, you talked about personality traits, if you don't have the desire to, kind of lay your life down, for both of the entities, it's probably not the department for you. Obviously when you're working in corporate partnerships, you're serving your corporate partners, you're serving, CEOs and VPs of marketing and things like that. So obviously the audience may be different, but in community relations, you're still serving, right? And so you're serving, whether it be the youth of that community, whether it be military, whether it be those individuals that are, going through a hard time or even a good time. So again, the first thing is, just having this level of servanthood. In addition to that, one of the things, that I've learned in both spaces is that you have to have tough skin, right? And so, there's going to be a lot of no's in both departments, right? There's going to be a lot of, hard times and things like that, but obviously the rewards are so much greater for, again, both departments. And I'll kind of talk about the differences of the two in regards to personality traits. For partnerships, you need to be able to walk into a room, whether it be kids or CEOs, and be able to communicate the same, right? And so if you're an introvert, if you're someone that, doesn't like to have conversations with people, that are uncomfortable, partnerships may or may not be for you. And then one of the other things I would say is in community relations, you have to be able to have a big heart, right? And so you're working with people in the most vulnerable state of their lives. I just remember, in, one of my positions, we were working with a breast cancer survivor, and we were putting on this event, and, the event we were, taking these ladies so they could have a good time, obviously, because they're survivors. And one of the ladies, told us that there wasn't anything that the doctors could do for her. And being able to respond to that and to be able to, still be able to do your job, but still be able to show her that, we're still supporting you. We're still here for you. So you have to be able to have this huge heart, to be able to walk with people, during really good times in their life where you may be surprising them with, a car or a house or things like that. But also, there may be some challenging times. You may be working with military, that just got back from deployment or lost someone on deployment. And so to be able to walk, in these different spaces, again, I think it suits both of the departments, but to be able to walk with someone during the most vulnerable time of their life, is it happened all the time in community relations. So I would say those are some of some of the similarities, but also, one of the, I'll just speak to the last piece of, just to kind of wrap it up of both departments and the ways that they're similar is that you have to, someone told me during my time in Michigan State, go green. One of the, yes. So one of the, things one of my mentors told me is that you have to be able to under promise and over deliver at all times. And so you do that in corporate partnerships, you do that in CR, and so I would definitely, if you feel like you have the ability to do that, I definitely think you would be successful in both departments.
Well, and I like what you said about having to be able to walk and talk with all different types of people. And I think that that's something that I think most jobs probably have, but especially our industry, if your job is facing the public at all on behalf of your team or your organization, you've got to be able to have that trait. You've got to be able to talk to the person off the street who's just coming into your office looking for the schedule for the season. And then you also have to be able to talk to an NBA owner that walks into your office or the president of the university and anyone in between. And so I think those are important things that young people need to know when they're trying to get into the industry, because I hate to say it and I don't want to generalize, but Lauren, the generation that's right below you and I think have not lost, but maybe don't find as important those people skills, those soft skills that we talk about. And so making sure that you set yourself apart with those soft skills, with those people skills will really make it, job finding easier, because if you can set yourself apart from your peers. So Lauren, you mentioned that you're in a career transition right now, looking for your next move. I know you said you wanted to be really intentional with your time right now. So talk about what that means and what you're doing during this time to remain focused and make the most of this transition point in your career.
Yeah, great question. And so, yes, I'm definitely taking just some time to breathe and refocus, but so many people think that, if you're in a time of transition, that means, just sit down and do nothing. Well, that's completely the opposite. I think, being intentional means that you're moving, you're in action. And one of the things that's important to me just as a person, I love to give back. So it wasn't just, something that I did in my occupation. I really believe in, during times of transition, you sow seeds into other people. And most of the time, during this, October timeframe, I'm literally either in the middle of a season, getting ready for a season, prepping for a season. And so literally I was like, well, this is the one time where I have the opportunity to kind of pour back into others. And so my tribe that kind of sits all the way around me, they all are entrepreneurs. They're, working in their professions, they're moms, they're, every sort of, thing that you can imagine. And so really, I've been very intentional about giving back to them. And so if they have initiatives that they're trying to get off of the ground, I've been using my skill sets to help them, with their businesses. I have babysitted, my friends' kids just to give my friends, some opportunities to like go on date nights or go do marathons or, do things like that, because normally I don't have the time. Like if you said, hey, Lauren, can you babysit my kids from 9 to noon on Thursday? I definitely wouldn't be able to do that. And so just being intentional about giving back has been, one of the things that I have been like adamant about doing during this time. Some of my friends are trying to get their businesses off the ground, and I've been, helping with their events and selling t-shirts and everything that you could possibly imagine. But it's been such a pleasure to do it because, again, I know that I won't have this time, later on down the line. And so that's definitely one of the things, just from a giving back perspective. Another thing I'm so especially like proud of this because it's just been challenging me personally. One, because I've just never done it. But I've been training for a marathon. So I'm doing the Free Press Marathon next weekend, and the longest I've ever run is a 5K. So the fact that I'm like, hey, let's do this half international marathon, I don't know where that came from. And, yeah. So, and, people think that, oh my gosh, like, that's like so random, but I've been surprised of how, obviously it keeps you in shape physically, but just even mentally, like it's all mental, right? And so to be able to get up, 3 and 4 times out of the week and run, 8 to 12 miles, on those times, it definitely takes mental strength and mental capacity. And so it's been great to be able to do that. And again, going back to my first point about giving back, I'm running with a group called Love Runs that raises money for sex trafficking victims because Michigan is number 2 after Nevada for sex trafficking. And so to be able to do this, obviously to keep me physically and mentally sharp, but also to do it for a great cause has been awesome. Another thing that I've been doing is just reading books, because again, normally during this time, I'm like getting home late, waking up early, and by the time I get home to even try to look at a book is just not an option. So I've been reading the stack of books. Yeah. The stack of books that I've bought, in the past year that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I've been reading, and then, I can't necessarily like share all the details of it, but I'm also writing a book. Yes. So I'm really excited about that. Again, going back to the point of like, you just don't have time. And so to be able to, actually sit down and like sit in my computer and write some chapters out, I'm really excited. And I'm hoping that, before I get ready to transition, into my next role, then my book will be finished. So, and obviously it keeps you sharp, it keeps you going. And it gets you, something that you're looking forward to. And then, obviously I've been doing a lot of praying, a lot of resting, because again, I know I won't have this time, in space. And so, I don't set my alarm clock, but, I think, just as an adult, you kind of get on that pattern of like getting up early. But, if I sleep in for an extra hour, I'm okay with that. And so just getting rest, it's just so important. I think, getting rest and, obviously praying and meditating, it definitely helps you prepare for your next season. It helps you prepare of, what you're looking for, what you're not looking for, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what interests you and what doesn't. So it's been a really great, time. Like, I've cooked more than I've ever cooked in my life. And so, but it's great. Like, I think, all these habits that you create during time of transition is only going to help you into your next opportunity. And so it's been a great, great time.
All sports, one voice, we coach. Tune in to the voice of women coaches on the We Coach podcast. This is Wisp Sports.
A couple of times you mentioned your next opportunity, your next move, your next role. Because you're filling your time so well, and it seems like you're being very productive and getting some of the things done that you've always wanted to do. How actively are you looking for your next role? And are you waiting for something maybe to come to you? What methods are you looking? Are you just kind of waiting for, something to fall in your lap, or are you actively searching out there?
No, I think the only thing that you wait for is buses, right? Like you don't wait for anything else. I think you should always be in some type of preparation mode, right? And so, I'm not going to say like I'm, fervently like, looking, I would say I'm openly looking, if that makes sense. And so, I'm definitely looking, in the same way that most people are looking. Obviously I'm, looking on LinkedIn for opportunities. I am on Teamwork Online. I am, looking at Indeed and things like that, it's not necessarily something that I do all day, every day. Because I am, again, just being very intentional about my next move and next opportunity that I have. But, I've been attending conferences, I've been having coffee with people, I've been networking, all the things that you would do if you were looking for a job and you weren't in transition. I'm just much more intentional about, the opportunities that have presented itself. But in addition to that, I have a great network of people, in every league and every industry. And so I have been, vocal that I am looking for the next opportunity, but because, I've kind of done the things what we talked about in the last question, I've been intentional, I've been praying, I've been, literally like figuring out like what I like and what I don't. I've also expressed that to my tribe and my network of people because, obviously if they know what you're interested in and they know what you're looking for, obviously if they know people or know organizations that's looking for that type of person or has that type of opportunity, they're going to extend an olive branch and share that information with you. So I do think it's just as important. I think sometimes, we don't want to share what our next opportunity, what we want it to look like because we're nervous that, people may think that we're not content in our current one, or, we're nervous that it may get back to someone or whatever the case is, but I do think, obviously within, your tribe and your safe space and everybody knows, who those people are in their life. I think it's important to share that opportunity because if people don't know, that you're open or you're looking, or, they may assume that you're completely good in your current role or your current position. And so I do think, being open with what you're looking for, I've been doing that as well.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think you're right. And I don't know if maybe it's especially women, I'd have to ask some guys, but I think there are times where, even if we are content in our job, if there's a part of us that wonders what else is out there, we think, gosh, if the wrong person finds out that I'm even wondering that, then I'm in real trouble. And so, but I think you're right. If there are the type of people in your life who you do trust to the nth degree, those are the type of people, like you're saying, you're calling your tribe. Those are the type of people that it's not a bad idea to let them know your dreams and your aspirations, because then when something comes up, they'll think of you first. So I think it's a good idea to have those people in your life, but make sure that you know the difference between those people and the people who maybe wouldn't protect you as much. So how did you know that this was the right moment for you to take a step away? Because I think there are a lot of moments that maybe it's because you are about to get married or about to have a baby, or something just doesn't feel right at work. How did you know it was the right moment for you to take a step away?
Yeah, I think when, and I say this in like any aspect of life, and so not just your career, but I think when you feel like that you have kind of hit that top of the mountain in regards to your experience and your skill set at that position or that opportunity or in that relationship or whatever the case is, I think that's a sure time to move, right? Like, I think that's a sure time to transition. I heard this, so I heard someone speaking years ago and they said, that it's time to make a move when everything in that current opportunity aggravates you, right? And not necessarily, people think of like aggravates in a bad way. And that's not necessarily the case, but aggravates you in regards to like, it's keeping you up at night. It's, you can't sleep. You want to contribute in a greater way. You want to do more. You want to expand your reach. You want, greater opportunities. You want to see, that organization go to the next level. Those are things what I mean by aggravate, right? And so I do think that those are definitely moments and opportunities for you to look back and say, hey, can I make a transition? Hey, can I take some time to regroup? Hey, and not only, obviously, you look at it as like, are things aggravating you, but also if there's an opportunity, for you to do something else, right? And so some people, you know, they spend their whole entire lives in one department, or they spend their whole entire lives, you know, doing, you know, one or working in one type of organization because that may have been, you know, what they got their degree in or whatever the case is. And it's okay to shift, right? Like it's okay to make a move. Like, you know, and I say this all the time, like if you, let's just say you worked in, I'm totally making this up, in corporate partnerships, but you've always wanted to be a chef, right? Like, don't spend the rest of your life working in corporate partnerships. You know what I mean? If you have the opportunity and you find a way that you can be successful and be a chef, go take, you know, a culinary class. And it's not saying that you have to just up and, you know, make the move right away. You know, but if you have the opportunity to slowly transition, maybe it's, you know, taking a cooking class, you know, in the evenings after you leave work or on the weekends, or, you know, volunteering with an organization, you know, that has students that are in the culinary field, and see if that's what you really like. You know, one of my friends, they have an amazing business. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Detroit Cookie Company. And one of the things, I didn't know, you know, their story about it, but you know, they worked for, you know, an organization, and they said, I really wanted to own a bakery. And I was like, who even knew that? And they said they literally made, you know, that slowly transition. And now when I say this business is like, I can't pull up and there's not, you know, literally cars in the corner, like in every corner that you could possibly think of. And so I do think if you have the opportunity, and I think that, you know, you mentioned earlier about just our generation, I do think we have the ability to take greater risk, right? And I'm not saying, you know, do anything that's detrimental to your life or your families or anything like that. But I do think we're a generation that's willing to take greater risk for greater reward. And so if you have the opportunity to transition into something that you really, really want to do, again, not saying that you have to do it, you know, overnight, but I do think, you know, this is the opportunity to do it.
Well, Lauren, I feel like I could talk to you forever about this, because I think there are so many women who I think get to a point in their career and are scared to, for whatever reason, whether it's their family or the uncertainty, or what if I never get back into the industry. So I think it was really refreshing to hear how brave you were and how brave you're being still, and not rushing back into something. And so I hope that our listeners get a lot out of this. If there's somebody who is looking to just keep in touch with you or see what you're doing while you're out, what's the best way to kind of keep track of you during this time?
Yeah, so I'm obviously on all social media. So my handles are just at Lauren Clayborne, LaurenClayborne. I am on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Obviously, from a professional standpoint, if you want to follow me and kind of the things that I'm doing, I'm on LinkedIn as well. Same thing, Lauren Clayborne. So feel free to reach out. Feel free to, you know, watch my Instagram stories and all my crazy training videos that I have out there. And so that's the way that you can keep in contact with me. I would love to. Please reach out.
Well, thank you, Lauren, again for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah.
And we hope that you get to accomplish everything that you want during this time, and wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
Especially in your book. So good luck, and thanks so much for being here.
Yes. Thank you. We'll have to have another podcast about it. So it's actually, and I'll just do a teaser out there, not to give you too much, but it is catered towards women. And the things, we'll just say this, the things that they carry in their purse. So it's a little teaser out there. So we'll have to definitely do another one soon.
Okay, sounds good. Now I really can't wait. Well, thank you again, Lauren, for being here.
Thank you, Kristin.
You're so welcome.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Wisp Sports Radio can be found on any podcast app. Follow Wisp Sports on social media at Wisp Sports. Please give us a 5-star review on iTunes to help promote coverage of women in sport. To follow Females in Athletic Business or this podcast, use @FABSportsOrg on social media. The FAB Podcast is a co-production of Females in Athletic Business and With Sports. Check out Females in Athletic Business at www.fabsportsorg.com. Thanks for listening and supporting women in sport everywhere.